This is Josh, also known as Yashu. You're just tuning into another edition of the TLOY Talks podcast. You can get this on all platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Buzzsprout, Patreon, much more. When you check out Patreon, there's like different tiers to check out like different forms of content, and you get more exclusive perks as well too. So definitely check that in as well. And yeah, I'm just gonna get it like started right now. And I feel like there is like no need for like an introduction for this one too, but like to kind of speak more. He's the drummer of the well-known Canadian band, the OBGMs, or the Oooh Baby Gimme Mores and all that too. They just recently released a project called Sorry It's Over and all that, which has like a lot of features from like Just John, Fiza, and like much more and all that. They've toured with the likes of like Death from Above 1979 and all that. And, he's also the brother of Clairmont the Second and all that too, who's a well-known like Toronto rapper. He was also here like on like the cool table as well too. And we have Cola H in the building and all that. How are you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. How are you? It's been a minute. I'm happy that we get to do this because I haven't seen you for a few years, and yeah, man, I can't even remember the last time I saw you, but you know what I mean. I'm happy to be doing this and meeting in this context.
Yeah, for cool. Sure. I think like because like the last time it was at Clairmont show back in like I think 2022, I think too. Like I think he was like doing a show at the Drake and all that. And a backstory. So me and Cola, we actually grew up in like church together and all that.
Yep.
Like kind of like went to Sunday and went to church on Sundays and all that. Interacted. He used to drum for the church and all that, which it was an interesting experience too. Like when you see him like drum, it's like different energy, different setting and all that too. And like it kind of got like the crowd going, everyone enjoying like the style, and then it led to his like further passion in being in a band and all that, and like forming a band with some of his other bandmates that have like done like a lot of shows like at Afropunk and all that, like in Paris, performed at like many venues like all over Canada and all that, like working with the likes of like Clairmont the Second and like much more and all that, and like even doing like a lot of like unique music with like Just John and much more and all that. It's amazing to see and all that. And like this like new album and like you performing at like Velvet, I think like in November, and then I think you were like in Hamilton, I think back in like February, like not February, last week. So
yeah, Hamilton and Guelph. We did a short little run with our homies Burner and Bad Waitress, and like both shows were insane.
Yeah,
it was really, really good. It's interesting too seeing. Like I think when you're not famous, you're like, are we gonna even be able to sell tickets? And then you get there and everybody's there to see you, and they're like, oh snap, yeah. So the hard ticket thing is a real thing, and I think honestly, I think that's a real thing that a lot of artists are missing now, because I think everybody just looks at your socials and they believe that that's the end all be all, and it's not, right? What's the end all be all is, can you sell a hard ticket? Can you sell merch? Can you when you drive your base to an action, do they do that? Whether and generally, like, to what point do they do that? Like, can they just do that? Like, oh, say what up to my homie on Twitter. Like, that's a very, very low effort thing. But it's just like, can you take money out of your pocket, like, to see us, to purchase some of our merchandise, right? Like, so that we can keep doing this. Because essentially, I mean, money is one of those things that they don't normally talk about it, but it's very, very important to sustain a business. So and
it's all about the foundation too, because like like even like growing up in Toronto, like in the 80s, 90s, like 2000s, and you've seen like the Toronto music industry from, or like even like the scene from like those eras. So how is it like seeing it from like that start until now and all that?
It's interesting. I mean, obviously. Obviously, I'm a little older than, like, I guess a lot of the new guard of what Toronto is. And even Clairmont will say that too. I believe, like, last time he was in this studio specifically, he's like, oh, I'm old now. And I was just like, you're not. You don't even understand what old is. Like, we're not even middle-aged yet. We kind of age ourselves out by saying that kind of stuff. I don't believe it. But seeing it from when I was a kid till now, I feel like back then, people were striving for originality, but the goal is still the same, and that's to get to the United States to really make something happen. How they get there is different, because social media kind of changed the game several times in just the past 3 years.
Yeah.
So 4 years, I should say, 5 years now officially. But it's weird though, because I feel like now people are trying to be so much alike the trend, like so much more than back then, that they don't even realize that they're kind of working themselves into an early grave of having to work nonstop, right? And I'm not against working nonstop, but I'm against working non-constructively. And if the mission is to make music forever, I just don't believe you get there by not making music. Period.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because like you came up in an era where there was like a lot of people that were trying to like amalgamate into different genres and all that. Like I know Chaos was like doing this like thing with like the R&B, funk and soul and all that. And like there's like a lot of like bands like, you know, like Billy Talent and like Cancer Bats, like that kind of like starting off like with like that raw grunge stuff and all that too.
All three of those that you mentioned are the homies.
Yeah.
Chaos, Cancer Bats, Billy Talent. We've played with Cancer Bats and Billy Talent. Was it not this past year, but last year? They're the homies. Love them. And Chaos is somebody that we see on the road often. So and Chaos is like a legend. Yeah, and I love that he started introducing the genre bending as well. I feel like he did that before anybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially from this city. And I mean, it goes to show everything, you know.
Yeah, that's facts, man.
Yeah.
And
Sorry, I kind of interrupted your question.
No, it's all good, but I think like it kind of made sense on like how the idea of like music like changed over time and all that. With like those three people that kind of changed like the way like sound is like nowadays, especially within Toronto, the GT and all that. And I mean, you have a family of musicians too, like Clairmont, your brother, well-known, successful Canadian rapper, Lil Mel, rest in peace, who was on the rise, that was like doing like a lot of music, and then I think Capital P, like I think also like your cousin, he was also doing music. So and like your father was also like a well-known like music director, like radio director within programming. So
musician as well too.
Oh, true. Yeah. So what was that like life like compared to like other childhood friends who weren't like immersed in like that lifestyle?
It was amazing. When you grow up in a musical family, you're constantly surrounded by music and art, whether indirectly or directly. Whether it's like the music playing in the background when you're at a family gathering, or whether it's like being at church, essentially. Like, you know what I mean? I think when you grow up in church and you're part of the band, so to speak, or indirectly a part of it, it just becomes a part of you, and it can't leave you, right? Like, I mean, like even when I think about Mel or Buck or P and that's just my mom's side. And even all my other cousins that that you saw sing in like the church choir and stuff like that. Even my aunt up till today. Like it just doesn't leave you, and the luxury, like I'm realizing luxury in life is being able to enjoy the finer things. The finer things is everything that's good. And pleasurable. Music, art, like you photography, like great clothes, like all these different things. They all are a luxury in life, and I've been very, very blessed to like kind of have that. Knowing that a lot of people didn't have that. Like Denz didn't have that in his family. Like, I mean, music was always around. Like even for him, like I know his older sister like was a professional dancer at a point, and like, you know, he was surrounded in that sense, and like there was always good music playing, but like to have good music not just playing, but have good music played as well, like it definitely changes things, and it makes you want to be a part of it for the rest of your life. So
that's fine.
I'm really, really blessed. I'm really, really happy about that.
Yeah,
so
because like I think like with your family, there's like a long like lineage of how like the impact of Toronto music is, like, you know, from what you were doing to what Clairmont was like doing to like what your other cousins were doing and all that too. And like you don't really see that with like a lot of like families like within Toronto. Like I think maybe Tory Lanez's family kind of had that impact too, because I think his family had some ties. But
the church, Tory Lanez, right? Like the church, his dad is a pastor.
Yeah.
So And funny enough, my dad interviewed him for my dad's internet gospel radio station thing. But yeah, like it's kind of funny too. Like if you are connected to the church, you're automatically connected to the music side of things. So and I think it goes without saying, it's because the music brings the people more so than, unless the pastor is unbelievably strong, right? And generally, if the pastor is strong, there's a direct tie to the music anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So the music is what brings people in and makes them tithe. So yeah,
exactly,
it's one of those things.
That's
so, yeah.
facts, man. And I mean, like, as far as like the artists or like sounds like that you kind of grew up like listening to, was it like mainly like a mix of like everything from like rock, punk, soul, hip hop, R&B, reggae, gospel, everything like all in between?
Yeah, I was sheltered until around like 9-10 years old. Only listened to gospel up to that point, and like there would be little sprinkles of Michael Jackson, Tony Braxton, Anita Baker, Bob Marley. So like those are and Alanis Morissette as well. And then as soon as I turned like 10, 11, started listening to rap. Like the first rap song I ever like really learned was Mace Feel So Good. And then from there, hip hop took over my life. And and then like I met Dens. We were sending beats over MSN. Might be aging myself saying that. Like, you know what I mean? But MSN Messenger was huge, man. And we were sending beats over there, and then we actually met because like we're from neighboring neighborhoods. And we started making beats, and then we noticed that everybody was making beats, so we wanted to stand out and differentiate ourselves. NERD was huge, and we started a band, and the intention was to essentially be NERD, but then just started turning up a little louder, like started playing a little harder. And then we got the OBGMs.
Yeah. And then I mean that was like a crazy period because like I think yesterday I was actually listening to like I think the first EP in like 2009, and
oh wow,
like that was like a crazy sound. Like I had to like download that from like Bandcamp and all that. And like that was like an interesting difference between the stuff in 09 versus like now and all that. And like
wow, I mean, what a different time.
And I remembered I think it was like back in like 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. I didn't start going to shows till like maybe 2014, 2015. I would get like random like invites on Facebook for like shows that you're gonna be in or like other people. So around that time, how was it like, you know, making music from that point until like now and all that with the OBGMs and all that?
It was harder, more expensive. Well, the only reason I say more expensive is because like it wasn't something that we can. With hip hop, you could make that in a closet, right? But like when there are instruments, there's a lot, or at least at that time, the mindset was there's so much more that has to be done, right? Like, I mean, if I was smart at that time and didn't care about anything, I probably would have just saved up my money, bought an M-Box and just recorded off of 2 crappy mics, some drums. But when you have standards and when you have what's the word I'm looking for?
Like ambition and like drive.
Ambition, drive, but even beyond that, taste. When your taste and your talent level don't match up, right? You're always chasing your taste, right? And there was no way at that time that we could do that, like, you know what I mean, in my mom's basement.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, the studio process was expensive, but I mean, we got through it. And I'd say in most cases, especially, wow, that 2009, that was completely self-funded.
Yeah.
I try not to even think about that anymore because I listen to it now and I'm like, man, this is so bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but and it's what's funny too is like, even at that time till now, I think the people who saw us at that time, well, music was different at that time, but like, I think the people that saw us at that time was like, this is not there yet, but there is something here that is special. We just can't put our finger on it. And then I think people saw that in the live show because as we grew as a band, so we started out as a duo, and then we found Joe and Jem, and then we kept rolling. That was for like from 2011 to 2014, and then 2014 we released our debut album for the first time because it came out twice. Long story. But then when we did that, and people would see, like, we were already the talk of the town for our live shows because they would be so wild and they'd be so what's the word?
Like rage driven, like kind of like a lot of unorthodox like type of things. And all that too.
Yeah. Like even up till today, like I'd say we're absolutely, without a doubt, one of the best live bands this country has ever produced. Period. And I'm saying that because not just because I feel it, but also because the artists that are essentially the gods of our genre say it. They say it. So, like, you know what I mean? It's just like, anyway, whatever. That's enough of my ego. But like they say it, they have said it, like they believe it too. Yeah. So like but yeah. So anyway, like I would say our taste levels were catching up. And then, you know, got re-released on a label in 2017. And then we also released another album where I'd say completely met up, The Ends, 2020. And then 2024, Sorry It's Over, which I'd say is one of the best rock releases from this country ever. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Period.
And I mean, that impact has been like strong within that time and all that too, because as far as like, you know, like with like black artists, like, you know, outside of like hip hop and like R&B in Canada, there wasn't as much show. I mean, Fifi Dobson was like one of the artists that was kind of making like a wave too for a bit too, like I think in the early 2010s. And then I know Errol Starr, who used to be like in a lot of like bands like back in the day, like in the 80s and 90s, like he was like kind of like doing this thing too. And then
oh, you really did your research. I like this.
And then I think there was like another artist. I think there was like, I think a light skinned like artist on like Down with Webster who did like the rapping side too. Yeah, like he was like kind of making his waves too. But like you guys were like the first ones that kind of honed in on being like black and like punk and like rock and all that in Canada. So how was that impact and journey like from like that start until now?
It was hard. There was a long period from inception till like maybe 2016 where every time we were at a show, everybody thought we were there to deal drugs until we hit the stage. Like, even when we went to go see bands that we like, friends of ours, like there was still people who didn't know us at the time and they thought we were there to be the drug dealers. And in one sense, you could say, well, at that time, like music wasn't as it wasn't as mixed up in a good way as it is now. But I mean, that's the reality. Like, you know, you're there to play music, and some white kids are asking you like to buy like Coke or you know what I mean, pills or whatever, and it's like that's what they think you're there for because that's all they've seen probably in their small towns. But at the same time, it's still kind of bullshit because I'm not even at the time not even dressed like a dealer, right? And it shows you like where it could go wrong in terms of prejudices and stuff like that. And then I think for a long time, and this is what I honestly consider offensive, a lot of times they were calling us funk rock. And it's just like, what, because we have swag? This is not funk. Like, this is purely rock. This is purely punk music. And yeah, it was offensive, but I think a lot of times it is because they see our us first. Even right down to articles that was being written about us. Like, you could tell that they didn't listen to music. They just saw a bunch of black guys. Yeah. And that's it. Right? And maybe because, like, you know, whatever. Like, they like, and then, I mean, I have my problems with blogs and media too, where they do the bare minimum and they don't actually do the research. That's why, like, I really, really like what you're doing here. Like, you really have done research on this. And it's like, a lot of these, like, and it could be for whatever reason. It could be because and I've gotten in trouble for saying this before, but it could be because they're just trying to meet a quota to keep their jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And but at the same time, it produces garbage. Like if you're only there to try to keep your job, it is producing garbage. So like I think in a lot of those instances, like, I mean, you could go down the line of articles written about us where it's really about nothing. It is only about the fact that we're Black. And and don't get me wrong, I love being Black. I love being a Black man. It's great.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Or great for me. But it's had its hardships. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm glad it's changed, but we fought tirelessly for that. We are still unapologetically Black, and the issue that I have is that I want the music to be respected as well. I want the music to be given a chance the exact same way that you give these white artists a chance.
Yeah.
And whether you keep us out because we're Black or because we don't have the same connections, both of those are still bad reasons to keep us out.
Exactly.
Because if it's merit-based, right, then it should be a meritocracy upon the music and upon the visuals. And I'd say we're second to none in both of those things.
Exactly.
So, and even right down to the business, like in terms of how we do business, I'd say we're some of the best. But anyway.
Yeah,
you know,
and this is like a time before like Six Buzz, Keep Six Solid, like all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So this is like Exclaim magazine. This is like Now magazine, where a Black artist like didn't really show up in the cover until like around like the George like Floyd era and all that too. And it is like kind of crazy to see how like even like with Black artists too, like especially within like different like landscapes within rock, punk, you know, funk, soul, and all that too, where they'll only get like maybe like a little like blurb like on a coverage, whereas they'll have like one white artist or like one old artist that will have like that full on cover and like expose it from there. Like they'll have like their full editorial, like their impacts, all that deep dive like editorial like interview. Whereas like with other ones, it's like they have like a limited perception of like how they write it too, and it all depends on who's like writing the article, whether it's like someone who's like Black, someone who's white, someone who is from like a small town and all that, or someone who is like from the city that might not be aware of having Black people like around them, like within like friendships,
or
like,
who paid the most.
Yeah. Like
let's be real. Like, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but like the payola is real, and payola is real. Connections are real, and a lot of those connections are based on money, right? So it's real, and I'd be more okay with it if people were just honest about it. But for whatever reason, they're not. And I have a problem with that. Yeah. But anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I know
worries, man. I think like you've brought like some great points. So I think that's why even people like Dalton Higgins and like Master T and all that.
Love Dalton.
Like
and
I know,
Master T.
Yeah. Like I think those were like the only like Black journalists at that time that actually gave a fuck about, you know, the Black artists like within the community, like within Black art, like Black Canadian like artistry and all that. And that's when like a lot of people like, you know, like with the maestros, the Fifi Dobsons, with the Mishi Mees and all that, they're comfortable like even being around them too. I think Four Corners, who DJs for the rappers and all that, Dalton is like his publicist and all that too. So that's why with those two, like they're very comfortable in like bringing around like a spotlight in showcasing like Black art and Black coverage like in the best way possible and all that. You know?
Yeah, it's because they know them, right?
Yeah.
Like beyond personal, it's just like it is good to see a face that you might recognize the same plight. You know what I mean? And I feel like Dalton has spoken to that, you know what I'm saying? And shout outs to him. Like he's done great work. So yeah. And we know that in this landscape, it's funny too. Like if you want to talk about PR and stuff like that too, like let's say beyond somebody paying for it, somebody who wants to get in it, somebody who studied like public relations in school and stuff like that. In order to get your foot into the door, like you have to know somebody. Now there's definitely ways to gain connections. It could be through doing an internship or whatever, but a lot of times it's based on connections that they've already know, and that's how it goes down. It just is what it is. Like, you know what I mean? And once again, in a merit-based, like a merit-based concept says that, okay, like if you're good enough, you will get work. But the reality is that that's not how it gets done. The way how it gets done is, who do you know? Who can get your, like, you know what I mean? Your resume, your work in front of the person that either hires you or doesn't.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Yeah, it just is what it is, man. That's just the game.
And even like being someone who's like black in this like scene, have you ever feel like you had to like compete or work twice as hard to gain the same respect as like a white artist?
Yeah, absolutely. That's and once again, loving being black, that's why I think we are the best, because we had to work for it. We if we were literally just the only people like just standing there and kind of playing our instruments, and there is room for that. There is room for that in rock music. Like, if we were that, there's nothing in me that would believe that anybody would come out to see us.
Yeah.
Period. We had to work twice as hard to get that attention. We had to play twice as good to get that. It just is what it is. Like, once again, it just is what it is. And I might as well say something about that too. I think that's my major problem with music today. Black music in particular. Because somewhere along the line, somebody or many people found out at the same time that you no longer have to be good in order to be successful. And I come from the land of the concept of the philosophy of, we have to work twice as hard in order to get attention. And when you're just trying to get out of a bad situation, usually the hood or poverty or whatever, and that's not all black people, that's just some. But like, when you're trying to get out of that, you're looking for the easiest route to get there. If you don't have to have talent, if you don't have to practice, like, you know what I mean? Like, hours and hours and hours daily. Like, and you can just have a viral moment or a viral song or just like a catchy tune that works today, that takes you out of poverty, and then everything else is done for you. Like, people are gonna do that, and they're not gonna work hard to be good at instruments. Like, it's hard. Like, it's hard to find main artists now that are absolutely stellar at their instruments.
Exactly.
Or bands that are absolutely amazing at the instruments, because once upon, like, even right down to like, and I'm not saying like I'm the best drummer, I'm definitely not. And I'm working hard to be better and better every day. But like, I remember when, like, I mean, in the 80s and stuff like that, like, all those guys had to be stellar at their instruments. They had to be. You don't have to be anything anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah, it kind of reminds me of like this like quote from like Queen and like some like the movie and all that. So basically, one of the main characters said, you know, why do we always have to be perfect? Like, why can't we just be like normal, average, all that type of stuff too? And like, it comes from like a lot of like factors in the idea of like excellence to be recognized, to be like one of the best too. And like, I think nowadays too, with black mediocrity and all that too, I think people are starting to take that in now, and like that's why a lot of people are having like this like negative like reception with music, you know, when they're seeing like an artist like Lil Baby or like Sexy Red and all that, or like Lil Nas X, or like even like some of the modern like R&B artists like today and all that, because you just got to do like the bare minimum to kind of get the attention, be good like media wise, and then like that's it. Whereas like with artists who have a lot of like perfection, like Adochi, like West Side Gun, like I could even say this to like Magnolia Park and all that, you know, like they have to work, or even like Blood Orange and all that, you know, like they have to work.
Hines, man. Yeah,
they have to kind of be on this scale to be where they have to be and all that. But like a lot of like the mainstream audience is not going to take that, because they're going to feel like that's boring, that's overrated, that's corny. Like, I'd rather like, hey, just say shake some ass or do some drill type stuff to kind of get my attention and all that. No, so
and you know what's funny too? Like, those things have their place. My issue is that now that's all that's getting love. or at least seemingly that's all that's getting love, and that bugs me. Like Doechii is a breath of fresh air. West Side Gun, like as you mentioned, breath of fresh air. Like these are people that definitely care about the craft, and yeah, man. And it's just a lot of people don't anymore, and they're just going. I mean, look at all the music. Like, so for an example, my release radar music that comes out that comes out every week, and I'm just like, you can just tell that it was made like this because an exec told them like, this will get it on your side, or make 1,000 songs. It doesn't matter if any of them are good. One of them just might catch steam, and it's just like, instead of carefully crafting things, and once again, some things have their place, but like it's just producing a lot of garbage right now,
Yeah,
and
so
it's just like I'm sick of it, especially if you get rewarded for mediocrity. Period.
yeah.
Like I do graphic design outside of music now, or not now, but always, and I was on this graphic design thing, and it was a picture. It was like one of the worst ads I've ever seen. And the graphic designer was like, "Why am I working so hard if this is what's like getting produced and paid for?"
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and yeah, it's easy to feel like that.
Yeah,
So
that's facts.
yeah,
And I know that, like, since this is like a solo one and all that too, like, I don't want to like dive deep on the OBGM music because I think like that's like something that the band would have to speak on. But like,
mm-hmm.
you've had like solo stuff like Commercial Break, which is like a dope project, Slippery, X Lips, and then also like New Money, I Don't Want to Hang,
Yeah.
Switchblade, and Uptick.
Thanks.
So, like, what were like those like creative processes and inspirations at the time, like when you released like the solo stuff and all that?
Yeah, man. It's funny too because like the solo stuff has never been my main grab. And that's because I never wanted to be a solo artist. I always wanted to be a producer. I always wanted to be a drummer. And but like I'll say this, like a lot of the times I was always searching for a new sound. You can hear that in everything that you listen to. Like it was always me searching for something new. Like to its detriment, right? Because like I should have like the amount of music that I have on drives versus the amount of music that's out. It's like it's like a speck in like the Milky Way. Like, you know what I mean? Um, I was always searching for something new. New sound, new flows, new this, new that, but new sound primarily. And like back when I wanted to produce for everybody, I wanted to be Pharrell, I wanted to be Jimmy Jam, I wanted to be Timbaland, I wanted to be like, because these are the people that I felt like was always producing new sounds, and the people who would choose beats were always choosing the hot sound right now. So I guess in that sense, things haven't really changed, right? Because now the new hot sound is what? Stripper club music? Okay, fine. That's great. Or like the new sound is what? The drill stuff? Okay, fine. Like, that's cool. Like whatever. And I realized that, and I've always kind of known this, but I notice for sure, the only way for my music to really, really get out is not from me producing for people. It's going to be me producing for myself. And then people will gravitate to it, and it's worked, right? Where I have produced and released stuff for myself, and because I did that, I've gotten work producing for other people, playing on other people's records, and all that stuff like that. So, I say that to say this: I'm gonna be releasing a lot of music this year, and like, it's gonna be all on my own terms, but the process of creating is literally me either sitting in front of a computer or sitting in a practice room just trying to figure out like cool stuff. Or if I have something on my mind, I'll just write it and then see if it fits with any of the sounds. So
Yeah, and it kind of like all depends on the element and like where you're at, like in a headspace type
yeah,
mindset and all that too. So
absolutely.
yeah.
Like so, yeah, man. I actually took a break from making solo stuff because like the so I left my corporate job in 2016 because I had a couple of things on on the table. The same week that I left, they all fell through. And since then, I've just been trying to figure it out. But I've been working in music full time since then till now. And it's been a lot of highs, lots of lows, a lot of good times, a lot of bad times. And the issue that I had with making things was that, especially within the last, like, since the pandemic till now, the main issue has been, how do I turn this into money, right? And when you do that, you're not going to create art, honestly. So I took a break from making solo stuff. I'm happy to say that I'm almost out of that. Almost 100% out of it. So I feel good. There's still some stuff on my drive that I gotta release. Like I have 2 EPs that I haven't released yet that are on my drive that are gonna be released this year. And and heaters too that I put on the back burner because I was like, I can't figure out how that will make money yet. But it's just like, that's not why I made it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you want to create art from a real place, true place. And if you do that, then it doesn't matter. And then everything that you want will come to you anyway. And that's what it's been. That's what it's been with those little releases that I've had thus far. Like, I didn't release those to make money, and they did. And they did what it needed to do behind the scenes. They did what it needed to do with the people that I meet every day. Like, whether it's at shows that I go to or shows that I play at or just hanging out. Like, it did what I needed it to do. But, like, you know, once again, like, you know what I mean? I'm married. I have a couple of kids. Like, my incentives changed over that time. So, like, how I made music changed. So, but once again, I'm almost out of that. Yeah. So I'm happy to say I got some stuff on the way. So
that's facts, man.
Yeah.
And like knowing that, you know, seeing like your growth like within church and all that, like within the music, and then until you took that time to step out of like the church for a bit too, like did it impact like your sound in a sense and like the way you kind of like define music?
Stepping out of church to make music is still kind of informed by how I operated within church, right? Because that, like, you know, I didn't go to a music school. I wasn't classically trained. I was trained in church. So a lot of the ways I approach music is from that, and which is like school, right? It's where you learn, for lack of a better word, showmanship. It's where you learn how to construct a song or how to prolong a song or when to. It's where you learn how to perform. And learning how to perform also requires you to know how to. It requires you to know how to, like where does the song work here, and how does it work here? How does it work with this? Yeah. So, like, I would still say it still informs everything, and I still do play at. I still get hired to play at some churches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, like, it's never quite left.
Yeah. It's just like within like the right moment and all that too. And like I know even the idea of like the foundation of like church and religion, like I know some people like still use it as like a basis and all that too. But do you feel like it's still needed nowadays as like a basis for like our lives and all that and how we conduct, operate ourselves and all that?
That's a very interesting question, because I'm sure, I don't know if everybody else feels like this, but I feel like church has kind of left the mainstream of everything and everyone. And I say that more as a and a lot for good reason and a lot for bad reasons. And I get it. I get it because, like, I've gone through a time where I wrestle with my faith. I wrestle with the book that I've been provided. I wrestle with concepts and philosophies. And I feel like that is normal if you are looking for something. The problem is not necessarily that church has left. The problem is that it hasn't been replaced with anything of substance. Yeah. Like, I mean, for some people, like, some people have replaced it with stoicism, and that's great. Some people have replaced it with like they've replaced religion and their pastor with safe speak and their therapist. So their therapist is their new minister. But here's the problem. Just like pastors, not every therapist is good, right? Period. I have a great therapist, but I think a good therapist is someone that helps you be constructive with yourself, right? Not somebody that is there to coddle you or say you have the right to not make better of yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And like, once again, I feel like it has just been replaced by nothing. And because it's been replaced by nothing, everything is a free-for-all. You could see it with who young people now, and when I say young people, I mean like people that are in high school. You could see it with like who parents are scared like that their kid is following, right? It's just like, so one big thing from the past few years was the advent of Andrew Tate. And it's just like, if you don't understand why Andrew Tate works, you're also part of the problem as to why these kids are even gravitating to someone like him, right? Like, you know what I mean? Or if you don't understand, like, or right down to, I'm nervous about saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you can't understand why Kamala lost, right? Like the election. If you can't understand that, then you are not paying attention to the people who vote, right? And it's just like, I'm not saying that God is the reason, like God left the room and now all hell is broken loose. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the morals and virtues that people stand behind, they are treating it less like a philosophy to follow, and they are treating it more like a gang. Like if I see you like and you are wearing the wrong color, like it's a problem, right? Like instead of like having healthy discourse, right? None of this, like leaving like society, like people leaving the church and leaving religion and all that, it, like, once again, I understand why people did it, but I don't think it's made things better. Period. I don't. I don't. I don't think it's made people more accepting of other cultures, more accepting of other subcultures, more accepting of different people. I think it's further divided us. But like that's it's not just church. It's an amalgamation of a bunch of things, right? Exactly. It's a bunch of things. Like so. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to watch now as a father. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Yeah. It's all about like, you know, the idea of like leading by example too, because like not everyone can like lead by example on how they see like the faith and all that. Because like there are like some pastors and some teachers who are meant to provide this like safe space for people to like learn and take on like this like knowledge, whether it's like formal education of God or formal education of just like regular like stuff and all that. But then when they kind of deviate from that opposite and all that too, that's when like some people like they might have like these like trust issues too. And like I've like seen like these like videos on like these like blog posts where, you know, like I think there was like a video where a pastor had to bring someone up because she was like pregnant and all that. This is like a 19, 20-year-old girl.
I just saw that, bro. Like that is like seeing that, it's just like, yeah, of course people are gonna leave the church. Yeah. Of course people are gonna demonize that. Like, and once again, that sort of thing is not exclusive to the church, right? Like, you see those kind of shamings happen in politics. You see that kind of thing happen in business. You see, there's something morally wrong. There's something morally not lining up with today's day and age. Like, it's like nobody has morals. Or matter of fact, the morals that they believe that they do have, they believe are superior. But like that is the antithesis of what morality is.
Yeah, exactly.
Thinking that you're superior. You know what I mean? So but that particular situation made me so mad, like, because I've seen it, and I'm just like, man, I've seen this situation play out before, and it's wrong. It is wrong.
Yeah.
Period. You know what I mean? You shouldn't have to announce. And then a lot of times, like, and this is where the wrestling comes in, like announcing it and then blaming it on the girl as if the girl was the only participant. I know somebody who was unfortunately, like, I mean, they received their baby in probably the worst way that somebody can receive something like that, right? And it's just like, and was still shamed for it. It's just like, are you out your skull?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then the guy doesn't even get shamed in the same way,
because this is like before marriage and all that too.
Fam,
And
like,
it also, I guess it also happened in your family as well too. Like you've seen, like
I've seen all of this.
Yeah.
Everything bad that I've ever seen in my life, whether it's like a moral problem, a physical problem, a mental problem, everything I've seen it happen in church. Period. Like all these different things. I've seen it happen within the church, whether it was my family or another family or whatever.
Yeah.
I've seen it. So it's just like, yeah. Now that's just my experience. I know some people that have had very terrible experiences. Like, you know what I mean? And forget who I know. Like, it's well documented. Like, and once again, this is not just like, for an example, Christianity. This is all religions, right? People, like, I mean, the Catholic Church, like, crazy allegations, and then crazy, like, ways to handle it, where they just ship the pastor to somewhere else. That's wild, bro. Like, and once again, not just Catholic priests. Like, they do it in every religion. Anywhere where power is being handed out, somebody is taking advantage of it. Yeah. And that maybe that's the main issue. It's where power is lying, and where we think it is versus where it actually is.
Yeah, exactly.
And what we think the end goal is versus what it actually is.
Exactly, man.
So,
to kind of dive deep onto like your growth as like an artist from the start until now, do you feel like you've grown as an artist and that you've like came like a long way in that sense?
Oh yeah. Like and me and Clairmont and Denz, we discuss this a lot, but it's just like you should always make music as much as you can, but at the same time you have to live. You have to live a life. You have to live a life that's worth talking about. Like, I think the problem is with
no worries, man.
Oh, excuse me. Breakfast. Anyway, I think the problem is with a lot of these artists now, and a lot of people that think that they are artists, is that they don't actually live interesting lives. They don't. Period. They have nothing to talk about. They're just trying to be like the next hot person, right? But that doesn't create an interesting life. Like, a lot of them are not living those lives. They're just emulating the life that they think that they think they need to in order to get what somebody already has. So it's just like, once again, they're not leading interesting lives. They're not meeting interesting people. They're not doing interesting things. They're just emulating somebody who is doing interesting things, and, like, you know what I mean? And it's just a bunch of copycats that have nothing to talk about. So yeah, I definitely think, and that's why I'm saying I'm almost out of that thing that was keeping me from making music, because like my life got interesting. It got interesting with kids. It got interesting with owning property. It got interesting with like going through COVID, like, you know, like living this life of being both in the hip hop world, but also being in the rock world, like in the even bigger sense, and meeting interesting people and doing interesting things and living life. You know what I mean? And doing cool shit. Excuse my language.
Yeah, no worries,
you know.
man. Yeah.
Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah, we can swear, man.
Oh,
Like,
okay. I'm probably not going to, but you know, but we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see what
man.
happens.
And I mean, like, even like seeing like Clairmont like grow and all that too, like,
Yeah.
and like seeing like that rise, you feel like it strengthened like your brotherhood like with him, and like the accolades you both received within your careers, like, which always remained like impactful regardless.
Yeah, his wins are my wins, and my wins are his wins. so there's a 10-year difference between him and I. And at the start, it was really, really hard to deal with that because, like, how can you relate? And then when he started making music when he was 16, I was like, it was my incentive to take care of him, right? And like, so we shaved off of like maybe 10 years out of his career, so that he didn't get duped and fooled into some things, to the point where he actually surpassed us, like in terms of a lot of the rooms and records that he was working on, which is amazing, and to the point where he's ultimately, like, he's an award winner, right?
Yeah.
Like, and he like, once again, his wins are my wins and my wins are his wins. That's my brother to the end. And like, it's absolutely made us closer. And like, you know what I mean? And now he's a man, like, you know what I mean? And we're men, and like, and now we relate as men, like,
Yeah,
as opposed to just big brother, little brother, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So,
And
Yeah.
I mean, he made like a lot of like impact, like at age 17, at age 18, like he opened up for like Gold Link
yeah,
and like was like on tour of like Sunreal and all that. And like
Yeah.
those were like some crazy times, like to see like a young artist
Yeah.
like get their shine and like recognition like at that start too. And like I feel like he does like deserves like his like flowers like in the Toronto scene and all that too, because like the sound and impact that he has, it's transcends onto like the idea of like black music in culture and like just like in general too, like even with the idea of like black boy joy, the whole form of like black excellence, like within
Yeah.
other aspects. It's amazing to see. And
Yeah.
I had like some crazy stories. I remember like I think the first song I listened to was like I think Flame Princess or something like that too.
Whoa, yeah,
And
you're going way
like
back.
I remember like the music video like at that time too, like it had like that unique color grading and it was
Yeah.
just, it transcended like very like deeply and all that. And like I remember like this kid's gonna be a star one day. This kid's gonna be doing shows like all over Toronto and all that, all over like the world and all that. And like, you know, it'll like go far from there and all that. And then I remembered I wanted to go to, because like, I remembered he was supposed to do like I think a shoot with like Harrison
Yeah.
at like some place
Harry,
on like
yeah.
Danforth and all that. And like I think to kind of fill in the form and all that. And like initially I was actually in my first year of like uni at that time
Yeah.
too. And like I remembered it was actually on an exam night or something like that or sometime like during the day. And it was like I really wanted to go, and then like my family kind of had to stop me there, like, hey, you have an exam and all that. I don't think you're gonna have like any time, like, and you're not gonna get paid for it. But
Yeah.
I thought like it would have been like a cool experience to be in a music video, to be as a background and all that too. But
That video was sick too.
yeah,
Oh man. Well, shout outs to your family for setting priorities. Like, it is cool to be part of things.
yeah,
Also, it is also cool to like complete tasks.
yeah, exactly.
So I think your family made a good decision, even though like that video is dope. I love everything Harry's doing, everything Clairmont's doing. Like, yeah, man, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I remember that exact time. And you know what's funny too? Like, Clairmont went from, think about that. Clairmont went from like Flame Princess getting covered on like Vice magazine and stuff like that, which at that time was enormous, right? Like, he went from that to like winning awards for his music videos. Like, you know what I'm saying? And like, once again, like when it comes down to music, when it comes down to visuals, when it comes down to performance, like, you know what I mean? Like, are we top tier? The answer is yes.
yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? And I'm not even saying that to be arrogant. It's like, look, the proof is in the pudding. Like, put any famous artist next to like put their music video and their song next to ours, like somebody that rolls within like I guess the worlds or the genres or whatever, and then put it next to one of ours. Like, can they stand side by side? Yes, absolutely. In a lot of cases, and I won't say too much more on this, like there are Easter eggs of people who follow Clairmont, for an example, like, you know what I mean? That and Easter eggs of when they follow him, what are in his music videos, and then a year later, or maybe even less than that, a year or two later, like you see elements from Clairmont's music videos into major A-listers' music videos.
yeah.
Sounds too.
And I mean, he was like the glue, like within that process too. I feel like
Fam,
Clairmont should have had that same fame and rise, and just that impact, just like Toby and all that, and like Havaya Mighty, because I think that nowadays too, like they're using Havaya and like Toby kind of as like the scapegoats of this is how Toronto music should be, but Clairmont was like doing it way better and like even like way younger, like in that sense. So, and like not to dig on like Havaya or Toby.
No, I love both of them.
Yeah.
I love both Havaya and Toby. I think they're great. You know what I think it is too? A lot of what we do, me, Clairmont, Dens, like our band, the OBGMs, like a lot of Asia, like on Clairmont's side, Asia, Hezi, we are in-house. We are completely in-house. We don't have like even when we had a label like on the OBGM side, everything was in-house. We did that. You know what I mean? When it comes to like even right down to this last the
album
the album rollout, like I would say that was 90% Dens. Dens did that. That was Dens. You know what I mean? That's in-house. When it comes to Clairmont's rollout for his latest album, like that's Clairmont in Asia. Like, you know what I'm saying? So you look at all these things, it's just like we collaborate within reason and we collaborate like when it makes sense. But other than that, when you're talking funding and all that stuff like that, Clairmont doesn't have any funding. Like, you know what I mean? What are you talking about? When you're talking about the OBGMs, we didn't get any funding for this. That was our money. Like, you know what I mean? Like, everything is in-house. All these other people, and like, once again, I'm not ragging on any of these people, but a lot of these people, they get grants, they have record labels, they have all these different things. We don't do that. And because we don't do that, like, we don't get some of the same accolades. And I was talking to Clairmont about this earlier this week, and I like what he said about this. Like, he's like, we've been playing the game, the industry game without the industry, expecting industry results. And the truth is that doesn't matter. We're playing a different game. We need to stop expecting industry results playing outside of the industry. And for Clairmont, the reason why he's not getting industry results, like, which he already has, he has the Juno nod if you want that. He's been long listed how many times? Like, it's already happened. Like, even us, we've been shortlisted on Polaris. Like, you know what I mean? And that's cool and all. But largely, a lot of the things that we've done has been direct to consumer, direct to the people. Like, you know what I mean? Clairmont has had one of the best listening sessions I've ever seen any artist have. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? To the point where actual celebrities are in the room. Like, you know what I mean? But that, like, with Clairmont, it's direct to consumer. Yeah, exactly. So when it comes down to it, Clairmont was like, yo, I'm like, and maybe I shouldn't even say this, but Clairmont was like, yo, I'm done with like thinking about getting like industry love. Like, I'm with the people. Like, you know what I mean? And honestly, like, if you really, really look at it, if you look at the success of a West Side Gun, the success of an Alchemist, the success of a lot of these bands or artists, like, comes from being direct to consumer. Like, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, like, I wanted a Grammy, I wanted this, I wanted that. And then you, like, I mean, I've been around the block enough times that I recognize what an okie doke looks like. Yeah. Right? An okie doke is, for an example, saying that you got a Juno nod, being at the Junos, and then realizing that you're in a stadium where you can't even walk down to the red carpet, so all the winners are on the other side. That's an okie doke. You know what I mean? And the reality is that they're kind of just putting you there because, like, it was kind of undeniable to put you there. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, like, this new now it's easier to be direct to consumer, period. Clairmont's streaming numbers have been solid, like, for everything that he's released since whenever. Like, you know what I mean? So he may not necessarily, in some cases he has gotten the Billboard, like, downtown. And really, like, then you also got to gauge, like, does that truly move the needle with the people? Exactly. Right? Do brand sponsorships truly move the needle with the people? Right? Because it might be a great paycheck hell, Clairmont's done it. Like, you know what I mean? Get great paychecks out of that. But like, if you're trying to move music and you're trying to move the people, direct to consumer is the best way. And Clairmont's found a way to do it. The band has found a way to do it. Like, that's how we've been able to sell these hard tickets outside of the city of Toronto. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even within Toronto, we sold out that show too.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that's been a direct to consumer thing. Yes, we also do play some certain industry games too. Like, and we're happy to do it too. But like, at the same time,
it's like on your own like terms and on your exactly.
It's on our terms, and this is what's interesting about like the Drake lawsuit, right? Because even from a hip hop perspective, it looks corny, and I agree that it does look corny. But in a hip hop perspective, or forget hip hop, in a business perspective, if the discovery goes how I think it should go, it is about to be revealed that a lot of this shit that you see online is fake. Streaming numbers, payola to labels and stuff like that, or not from labels to like record radio shows and all this and placements and all that. Payola is about to be revealed. Like, all these different things are about to be revealed, and you'll see that a lot of it is fake. Yeah. Shit, followers, fake. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just is what it is, right? There's always a way to get around something.
Yeah.
And there's always a way to get around something.
Yeah, even like placements too and all that. And like, I think we'll like even like dive deep like further too, because like even like this impacts like the Toronto Canadian like music scene and all that too. So like, how do you even like feel about that? And do you ever feel like there should be some changes on the direction of where the Canadian and like Toronto music scene should go and all that?
I can't speak to that. Like, and the only reason I can't speak to that is because like I think the kids that are in high school now will be able to dictate the next 2 to 3 years of what the Toronto scene looks like. What I remember from what we were doing and what everybody around us was doing back in the day is that like the whole scene, the vibe, everything was different. Like, whether it was like the mainstream hip hop scene or whether it was like the alternative scene that we were more a part of, right? Like even right down to Clairmont. Clairmont was part of this like alternative hip hop scene that I still think is like at that time was some of the best things coming out of this city. But like, I think there needs to be more of a focus on talent, personally, because I feel like now that it's not focused on talent, it's focused on being a scenester. Like being there, like just being there to be there. And I feel like because like our time was focused on talent, and that's how you get Drake, The Weeknd, Party Next Door, Tory Lanez, like Jesse Reyes, like that's how you end up getting these names, right? That's how you end up getting like the Boy Wonders, like, you know what I mean?
T minuses and like
T minus, fucking
Layla
like,
Days and all that.
Layla Days, Shy Wisdom, Jarrell the Young, who was part of Young Wolf Hatchlings, getting these huge like songs that they were producing. Exactly. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that's how you end up getting like these major things. Like, you focus on talent, you focus on things being great, and now it's just focused on things being hot.
Exactly.
And if you focus on hotness dies out with a breeze. Exactly. You know? And I mean, that's how I think it should go, but the kids will be able to dictate whether that lasts or not.
Yeah.
And
and I think like they're like kind of like dictating it like more on the trap drills, like, you know, music stuff too, and then also with other stuff too, with like generic like rap or like R&B or rock and all that. Mm-hmm. And it all depends on the situation too. But like what I've also noticed is that like with Toronto and like even like with the Canadian music scene, there is like a lack of like PR companies and agencies like directed for like Black artists and all that, or even like, you know, artistic development like programs
cost money.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
it costs a lot of money, right? Like, I mean, this last rollout that we did with the OBGMs, right? Like, there was money put into it, but it was like, once again, direct to consumer, right? Like, I think the landscape is changing. I think the idea of celebrity is changing, and the idea of getting your things on a blog or getting it in a cool magazine is changing.
Yeah.
Like, podcasts are the new thing.
Yeah.
If you could operate good on a podcast, like, and even then, that still might not move the needle.
Yeah.
It just might not, right? Everything is up in the air right now.
Yeah.
And because everything is up in the air right now, like, I think people are just trying to figure it out. And it's hard to justify putting a PR agent on retainer for $500 to $4,000 a month, or even $10,000 a month, depending on how big you are. It's hard to justify that when you see the landscape changing so fast. And it changes, it feels like, it's felt like every 3 months, something new and different is going down. The use of AI, like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, how would you use AI to put together a PR strategy for $0? Like, you know what I mean? And there's an art to PR. There's an art to building a story. And that's the one thing that, as mammals, like, makes us different from any other mammal. Like, you know what I mean? We operate off of stories, right? Whether it be stories about philosophy, the Bible, or whether it be a story about this inventor or this musician, or, you know, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, once again, like, I would love to see PR focus on Black artists more, because I feel like we have some of the best. But, like, I mean,
it's gonna be like a work for all, like, process and all that, like, in a sense.
Dude, like, think about, like, what sells and how it sells. Like, when you think about the consumer base, and, like, I didn't even expect to get into this, but, like, the reality is that the consumer base of the world, the template is white, blonde, blue-eyed male. It just is. Like, and it is the template, and it's a template. It works. Like, you know what I mean? And it's something that everybody recognizes, and it's why it works. You'll get a few people that break through the seams, like, for Black men, like Will Smith, Kevin Hart, The Rock, I guess. Like, that's like 3. You know what I mean? Exactly. Like, and then even for women, like, you know, like, you still have Scarlett Johansson and Sydney Sweeney, which is essentially the same template but white. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it just is the template. It just is what it is. So it's easier to sell that because it has been sold more for longer worldwide. It just is what it is, right? Yeah. And sometimes you'll get a little, like, sprinkle in there, like, for change, like, based on, like, and once again, sometimes you might just never know. Yeah. Like, the first thing when I quit my corporate job that I was told about entertainment industry, like, a homie told me this, like, and he was wildly successful at this time. He's just like, Cola, nobody knows shit about what's hot. Nobody. Like, they're going to convince you that they know. They're going to convince you that they can manufacture it. It's impossible. Nobody knows what's hot. I don't know what's hot. You don't know what's hot. They don't know what's hot. Yeah. These people don't know what's hot. They're like, everybody's just kind of trying shit out. Yeah, exactly. And either works or it doesn't. And then when something works, everybody tries to emulate what works. But that's more finite than the person who did it first. Exactly. Yeah. Just is what it is.
And, like, there's, like, you know, obvious, like, answers to, like, with the idea of, like, gentrification in Toronto, affecting the music scene, and, like, also, like, the crab in the bucket, like, mentality. But I feel like that's stuff that's already been discussed before, and, like, I think everyone's gonna give, like, the point of view on it, on how people hate Toronto, like, all that do type stuff. But there is, like, a lot of, like, minor factors that we, like, even, like, discussed onto on the idea of, like, PR and, like, where people are, like, going to now, like, with, like, streamers, like, becoming, like, more famous and all that. And, like, you know, even, like, people just only doing performance-based stuff, like, rather than, like, an actual, like, interview. Like, even, like, there's, like, this one channel on the Radar, which has, like, many performances on YouTube, all that. They used to also do, like, interviews as well, too. I think they still do, but it's, like, everyone's just gonna go for the performance, where it's, like, you know, synced in audio. It's just, like, the audio from that song. It's not actual, like, raw, like, live vocals. Like, maybe some will do that.
It's true.
And then
That's rough to see, man.
And
Like, once again, you know what that speaks to? It speaks to a number of things, but in my opinion, what that speaks to is, like, once again, lack of talent, right? Like, there's that, and then, like, what's the difference between that and, like, is it Ion 95 or whatever? The Bars Central?
Yeah, I
like,
think Bars and Ion 95. And
yeah,
there's like From the Block and all that too.
yeah,
So.
like where you actually have to have talent because talent is respected over there, and it's just like, but on the radar, if you have a hot single, like, you don't even really gotta. And I'm not saying On the Radar doesn't have some hot moments. Like, I feel like that Cash Cobain bass swag, like when they had all the girls behind them,
exactly.
it looks cool. Like, and I can't argue with that.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? It looks cool when you could do something. Or even BFB the Pac-Man, who actually was rapping on that. Like when like he's hitting the bars and then like he takes a sip of his cup and then he gives it over to his homie and he hits the bars again and then he takes a break and then he sits
exactly.
Like, but even that, like, those are people that are being themselves. I feel like most people are not, and most people don't respect having talent, which is why they need to sync up their audio with the video.
Yeah.
And maybe that's also the Super Bowl thing where it's just like they need it to be perfect. But it's just like sometimes it's better when it's not perfect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like that's where like, once again, the danger is where the gold lies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
and it's just like a safe bet too, because easy accessible, like some people like put in some money, or like they'll have like the publicists like have them in and all that, and like that's it. You know, you don't have to do too much. You don't have to do like some small talking where you don't have to do like damage control and all that too. So that's why the idea of like interviews and podcasts and all that type of stuff too, it's gonna come to an end at some point where like there's like no need for like a blog anymore. Like no need to write like your thoughts on an actual song or an actual album.
Yeah.
Where like, hey, like these kids are gonna only watch the video and that's it. And
yeah,
it is what it is, you know.
Yeah, man.
Exactly.
Like, once again, like everything has its time, and like all we have to do, in my opinion, is just be honest. Like that's what I want. Just be honest. If you're honest, like, it'll all work out. Like, you know what I mean? Or it'll all work out the way it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
Whether it's the way you want it to or the way you don't want it to.
Exactly.
It'll work out though.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Man.
But yeah.
For sure. And like, what do you have like going on next for like the rest of the year in terms of like any events, projects, and so forth? And do you have any like closing remarks and all that?
Okay, so with the OBGMs, we play at the end of February for the Wavelength Festival. That's in Toronto, around Dufferin, and just go to our website, theobgms.com. And then after that, we are doing New Colossus Fest in New York. That is, they're going to be announcing our date, or like the times and shows that we're going to be playing. That's in March. And then right after that, we're flying to Austin for South by Southwest. We are doing that. And then we are trying to still figure out our summer. We might not, we're still trying to figure out our summer. The hope is that we'll have either a very healthy North American tour or some slots and some festivals. For me personally, I plan to release a lot of music this year. I plan on release like rap releases, dance music releases that I've produced, and I also plan on some other experimental stuff. But like, I know for sure, 2 EPs are coming out this year. I'm hoping that before the second quarter is up, that at least one of them is out there. I am what else? I'm and playing on people's records. We hit the studio next week with the OBGMs. Like, we're already working on another record as well as still pushing this one, and like some collaborations as well with Clairmont, and yeah, and I think that I'm gonna start producing more content. I've been very, very terrible at that because I am not a content creator. I am a musician. I am an artist. It is hard to, like, I mean, they never asked Amy Winehouse and Kurt Cobain to make content. You know what I mean? That wasn't part of, like, They never asked like you know what I mean, Jay-Z to make content. They never, and I'm not comparing myself to them, but like just like they are artists, I am an artist. We are artists, and I feel like the ask for an artist to be a content creator is a lot. It's like sort of inevitable, but you know.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, but I do plan on releasing a little more and a lot more actually, and that's what we got going on. And Clairmont, I'll let Clairmont speak about what he's got going on
right.
later this year. But
Nah,
that's what I know for sure. That's the most soon things. Anything else you want to talk about? Like I'm down.
Yeah, I mean, I think we might have to do like a part 2 on this soon, and like
Yeah.
I know like it was just like kind of like some minor stuff too with like touring and like other stuff too, but I feel like because like we've had like this like in deep like conversation for a bit too, like I want to do like maybe like a part 2 like soon and all that, and like I also have like another like thing going on like later on today and all that, but like we'll definitely do like a part 2 like maybe sometime in the next coming months and all that, or anything else too. Like we'll definitely like hit up and all that. Like probably have you back on as like a regular and all that, you know. And
sick.
Yeah, man.
I like talking.
Yeah,
but
man.
It's always love.
Yeah,
always
man.
love, man.
Yeah, man. But
and love to your family too, bro.
yeah,
Like
I really appreciate like same to you. Like with many successes with Clairmont, with you, with Sharon, with everyone else too.
Thank you.
Much blessings and much love to show and all, you know. And like we'll definitely have you back on, and you know we'll definitely like kind of continue on with this growth and all that, you know. So
yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, man. But yo, this is Josh, also known as Yashu, another episode of TLOY Talks with the legendary Cola H of the OBGMs. You can get this on all platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Buzzsprout, much more. And yeah, man, and definitely check out like Cola's music and all that. Like definitely check out the OBGMs like music and all that. They're gonna be doing a lot of shows with Wavelength. I'm actually gonna pull up to that one on the 26th and all that. So
sick.
It'll definitely be a dope show and all that. And yeah, I mean definitely check out like their shows like whenever they're performing at your city and all that. And probably have them back on maybe in March or April, you know, who knows, you know. But it's this is Josh, also known as Yashu with Cola H signing off.